The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Hey, Jamie.
Hi, Allison.
How are you doing this week? So, you traveled last week, right?
I did, and I went back to my hometown and I got to spend Mother's Day with my mom, which was so lovely. And my brother made dinner. It was just a very lovely day. It was a very lovely weekend.
Yeah, it was a pretty good weekend here, I think, in Pennsylvania. I also went over to my parents' house. I cooked dinner for my mom. We
Lovely.
listened to episode 3. So then it's like the grandmother from the past is also in the room. It's very interesting.
That's lovely. Like, that's such a lovely sentiment. Like,
Thanks.
yeah, I really like that.
That was really cool. But yeah, so where did we leave off last week? We left off with Sweetie in class, not paying attention in class.
hmm
She really needed stockings. And then she was home for winter break.
hmm
And we were getting a lot of updates, but most importantly, to our audience, especially if anybody didn't listen to episode 3's letter, no updates on Ed. We don't know yet. But we have the review of basically the timeline here because Pearl Harbor has now happened. That was on December 7th, 1941. And we ended last week's episode listening to Roosevelt addressing the Congress on December 8th, 1941, with the Congress declaring war on Japan. We also mentioned the last time that America has actually formally declared war via the Congress
Yes.
was World War II. So we're now in post Pearl Harbor, and now we're in 1942. So we've left 1941, and we're going to be starting tonight with Sweetie back at Parsons College and writing to her sister Jean. And we're going to kick off 1942 now with America having entered the war. All right, so we'll get started.
Yeah.
January 9th, 1942. Dear Jean, I got your letter this morning, and already there is one on the way to meet you, and now I'm going to mail this one. The letter I got this morning had been to Lacona and had been forwarded on to me, and apparently it had not been opened, or at least I couldn't see any signs of it. I let Marie and Lucille read your letter, and they both got a kick out of it, and the description of Emma and Christopher, and nothing would satisfy them unless I got out the pictures of us all and run through with them again. Marie said after reading the letter and looking at the pictures of you, I think I'd like her. But what will we do about going up there if you go to Ottumwa to stay? Well, I said we'd just have to make arrangements sometime, and then Lucille would have to come with us, and we'd come through Fairfield and pick up Marie some Friday and go and stay the weekend. That at first sounded sort of nice, a daydream invitation, but I guess you're really going to get took. She has sort of wanted to be a nurse, and so anybody that is one is sort of a knight errant in her mind, and so she would probably stand back and worship with open mouth and goggling eyes. But I think you'd like her too, and I think that if you cannot arrange to keep all 3 of us some time, that we should take them in shifts, and let me bring Lucille one weekend, and then some time later bring Marie. What do you think? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. Because I just love seeing like the terms that they used back then. And so, knight errant.
Yeah, knight errant.
Is
Just
this something you're familiar with?
a bit. It's like the knight in shining armor, and I love that it's being referred to for the nurse.
Yeah.
She's so in love with this idea of the women helping other people and going into that profession. Then we also have Lucille and Marie. We heard about Lucille and Marie in the previous letters in episode 3. This really is very strong friends that she's made at Parsons, to the extent where she seems to be closest of all to Lucille. Because, there's a lot, they're spending time with each other's families, but this is a group of women, they're hanging out together. And it's nice for her to have that. And then post holiday, they're back at school together. They're talking again about making weekend plans. So it's nice to see Sweetie very happy about this sort of thing. In my other letter, did I tell you about getting the nice letter from Bob? He wrote and told me all about the training that I've been asking him about for so long, and for some reason or another, he has neglected to write the answers back. He told me all about it, and I really did enjoy it. I think I shall enclose my last letter that I got from Mama, and then you can catch up on it and read it at your leisure, for I would have a lot to tell you. Yeah, and I just wanted to comment here real quick. In the last letters we were dealing with, she was demanding letters from everybody.
Yes.
It's nice to see that she's writing that she's actually getting them in the mail now.
Yes.
You know?
And it's cool too because and this is another example that how they would forward letters on to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they communicated. I would not send. When I was my first year in college, I did write to my best friend, and she kept them. She kept those letters, but I would definitely not send those to my parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely, and it's cute. It's because they're all very close, and then they all share these letters.
And then the part about the answers. Now, I have seen this in some of the letters where they will just write the question and be like, here's the question I need you to answer. And they will leave a space for the response so that it's sent back on the same paper to get that specific answer back. I've seen that a few times. And so when she's saying he neglected to write the answers back, she had some particular questions he wasn't answering, but at least she got the letter. I envy you your trip to see the Boltons, but at the same time, I'm glad that you did get to go. I've wanted to see M.A. so badly, and all I have is a picture to look at and the tales that you and Marge write to me. I think that was sort of funny for Bill to invite McKee out to their place, don't you? Was it a put-up job, or had he already been invited out? I'm glad you don't like him, for I don't want you to. He's no good. And besides, don't forget, he lost his marbles somewhere in the fracas. This is interesting. I'm not sure who McKee is, but clearly people are not a fan of whoever McKee is.
No.
So this little descriptive passage about somebody losing their marbles. This whole part in relation to the Boltons, to Sister Margaret, known also as Sister, and her family, her being married to Bill Bolton. Just really funny. I'm genuinely unsure of who McKee is, but it's clear to me that whoever it is, it's not very much.
No, she had no problem telling her that, no, I do not want you to like him. He must not be a very good person. And I'm guessing that it probably was a put-up job, like she says.
Yeah.
He might have invited himself. But yeah.
Well, I guess we'll find out. Maybe at some point.
Maybe.
Whoever McKee is, it's a mystery. My government professor got pretty excited Saturday in my class. He is Hinkhouse, as you know, and though his classes are usually interesting, this one proved more so than usual. He seemed very pessimistic about our chances for winning this world war with the fall of Wake Island and the fall of Manila, and the prospective and danger of the fall of Singapore. He went to the last war, and he told us some of the things that happened, and he also had a letter from a fellow who had graduated from here and is now in Washington or Oregon State, and he told about the ball game that was held on December the 7th in Hawaii, and said that nearly all the Navy and Army fellows had attended the ball game and the celebration that followed, during which they all got pretty well stewed, and that's why they were taken so by surprise the next morning while they were all trying to sleep off a hangover.
I'm sorry. I have never, this intrigued me so much because that's not something that I've ever heard.
Nope, I haven't.
So what happened was there was, I'm guessing, a baseball game.
Baseball, football, some sort of ball game between Army and Navy.
Oh, it might have been football. And then they all afterwards got super drunk.
That's what it
sounded
like.
And that happened to be the day that they were attacked.
Seems a bit strategic if there's a highly, if I would imagine the attendance is pretty high, right? Because they're saying that they're getting word back from this student who had graduated from Parsons. He's on the West Coast. They're in communication with people on the island who said, oh yeah, there was this really big ball game that went on and people were caught unawares. I haven't heard about this in the history books anywhere. Now, I don't profess to be a scholar of World War II,
Hmm.
but I would be very interested to hear from scholars of World War II, especially scholars and academics that study Pearl Harbor, to see if there are any references that they've come across that identify the scale of what's being talked about here with the ball game. But it sounds
And
like it was pretty big scale.
exactly. And for this, like, and it says nearly all, and I mean, of course, this could be an
Mm-hmm.
exaggeration, but I'm guessing that if they're playing a football game, a bunch of them are going to be watching it,
Mm-hmm.
participating in it,
Yep.
and and enjoying the time, and that only a skeleton crew would be left
Right.
to run things. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I would be interested to hear more about that because it just sounds, actually, to me, it sounds a little suspicious.
Yeah. If the letter had said, um, there was this big ball game and then the attack happened, and that's really too bad, that would be one thing. But in this case, we're hearing specifically from the student that's hearing, um, that was basically reporting on this, that this is why they were taken so much by surprise, specifically,
Hmm.
that this was a
Hmm.
problem. It obviously makes the attack way more tactical from the Japanese. It makes it not a random occurrence. I don't think that it would be a ball game that would be just like, oh, let's go, play a ball game out here. It sounds like something that the timing is very suspicious, right? Like, oh, these people might really be distracted with this going on right before, and then the attack happens. It seems too planned.
It
So,
does. I mean, they know that they're going to be in bed. They know they're going to have headaches.
yep.
They're going to be a good
Hmm.
second off the snap. I
Yeah.
guess you could say they're going to, it's not, it definitely, for me, this honestly sounds like something that they knew about
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
capitalized on. But I don't know. I would
No,
actually love to hear from other people. But yeah.
yeah. I'd really like to hear from the people that really study World War II. What have they heard about, this
Hmm.
story? Because this is what she's hearing in 1942, within the month of Pearl Harbor having occurred. Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's just vanished from the history books or if it's just seen as a more minor thing, like, oh, there was this game. In this case, that's put front and center. Like, there was something going on the island, and then the attack happened.
Yeah.
So, very interesting. But we'll go on from here. He got pretty excited, and his pessimism, coupled with his apparent anxiety, caused the kids to settle down and think quite seriously. You know that he is about the most beloved professors on the campus, except for Dr. Carter, of course, and when they came out of class, they had caught some of his seemingly morbid feeling. I felt rather depressed, and more than a little frightened to think that he would get to feeling so badly about it. I felt even worse when I stopped to think that our brothers would be in it, as well as our innumerable cousins.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's thinking about what the potential cost could be for this. And the professor had mentioned early on in the letter, it says that he was in the previous war. And the war being referred to here is World War One. Hinkhouse was in the First World War. So the students are coming out being like, okay, we've just heard what really, happened, what really
Hmm.
transpired. We've got some firsthand evidence that is being reported to us through a professor who's respected, and no one's quite sure where this is going to go. And plus, they're mentioning the fall of Wake Island earlier, the fall of Manila, potentially something occurring with Singapore. She's looking to family. Frank's in the military, Bob's in the military, and then all of the cousins' extended family that are going to be essentially in the same age range as her. So, I got a letter from David Chase the first day I was back at school, and maybe you think I wasn't knocked off my feet when he said that he was doing double duty since one of their announcers had run off and left a wife and little child and another on the way and getting added money and asked me to marry him. Yeah.
Via mail. No, I mean, and you did say, and
Yep.
you did say, and this, and I'm, yeah, we gotta touch on this, that
Hmm.
there was a lot of marriages happening, a lot
Yep.
of quick, because people were leaving for war, you
Hmm.
know. So, but dude, you can't.
Proposal via letter.
be a letter. Like,
Yeah.
you can't be serious. I think maybe,
Right.
and what I bet I'm willing to bet maybe he had, and I don't know who this David Chase is. I'm hoping that we'll find a little more information about him.
Mhm.
But I'm hoping that maybe, or I'm thinking maybe he had maybe more than one letter out. Hey, do you want to get married? Hey,
Gross.
do you want to get married?
It
And
seems
then
very fast.
this poor woman who has a child and another, and her husband left her.
Mm-hmm.
I bet it was that McKee guy that we heard about earlier.
Who knows? I don't know. But David Chase. Yeah, so this is the first time we heard this name. We know the letters about Ed from school were in September. This is only about 5 months later. So she's been dating somebody else. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm guessing is because we hear no mention of Ed in the October letters from the third episode,
Mm-hmm.
is that they were probably dating for a couple of months, I would think, because she has a happier tone. But then again, she didn't write anything about David in those other letters, but she was writing them in class. So
That's
maybe
true.
she just ran out of time. Um, it's not quite clear. But all of a sudden, marriage proposal by mail. Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Not a good look, sir.
I have let the letter ride this long, and here it is, Friday already, and I haven't answered it at all. I'm ashamed too, but somehow I couldn't think what I should tell him. Every time I start to get to thinking that I'll probably just muddle it so badly and hurt his feelings, and when I have letters to write, I usually leave his right till the last, and then somehow I think of something that needs to be done, and it takes a back seat, just because I'm afraid to write to him. Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you what you should say. You should say no.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and I don't know. I mean, maybe she does. I don't know. But but I do feel for her here. Of course, you just some guy just proposed to you. How are you going to let him down gently? Um, and then also you don't want to like if she and I mean it sounds like she knows it. She's like, no, I'm not going to marry you. But
Yeah.
she knows what she wants to say. She's just trying to figure out a way to say it.
Yeah. For someone that writes a lot of letters and could just be like yes and send it in the mail, and wait for the response eagerly. She's procrastinating. And she's writing. I don't know what to tell this guy. This is a bit soon, a bit sudden. I don't know.
Well, I'm hoping that we get some follow up to this particular story.
Yeah, some details about David.
Yeah.
I have just 2 more weeks of this semester left, and then Miller and I are going to Ottumwa together, and believe me, I'm really looking forward to it. We are going to try to get rooms or a small apartment, but if we can't find any, we'll probably live in the YW. I've spent all the time I can now in writing to you, and since they're coming at such rapid-fire succession, I think I can cut it short. You'll have to write to me now, and a good long letter it should be too, I think. Love, sweet. So, with regards to this one, she's saying there's 2 more weeks in the semester left. And the timing's really interesting here because this is from January 9th. And what I have to wonder is that because the attack on Pearl Harbor was on December 7th, and I think about, college schedules, and usually in a semester, the first week of December, it's about the end of the semester, maybe the second week before the holiday break. But then if Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, I'm wondering if the college schedules in 1941 were all interrupted. Because I can't imagine coming back after a holiday break and then finishing a semester for 2 weeks. That tells me that there's probably some final exams that all got moved back. It'd be interesting, any academics out there in World War II, to take a look at that as well, that, the college life was interrupted. Things were just stalled. And that's the only thing I can think really happened here. And so there's that. But then she's also leaving with Lucille. They're going to leave and go to Ottumwa. They're going to leave Parsons College.
And so this is the end of Parsons.
The end of the Parsons chapter. An interesting, short, dramatic relationship. Doesn't really want to be there kind of chapter. But yeah, it does seem to be the conclusion.
Yeah. And she always, of course, ends. And this is so like Sweetie. She's just pestering them at the end of every single letter.
Make sure. Yeah.
You have to write to me now.
You'll have to find where I am. I'll be somewhere, but you need to write to me because she's gonna move. Yeah, and she's gonna go with Lucille to Ottumwa. Great.
Nice.
And then for the other letter this evening, we have 2 letters tonight because the second letter is a bit longer. than some of the others. We are going to get some feedback now for what's going on back in Lacona from her father, the Dr. Chester Demaree. He's going to let us know how things are going back at home.
Lacona, Iowa, January 11, 1942. Dear Lizzie, I started this letter December 28th, but we have been more or less busy since that time, so the letter was sidetracked until today. I will try and include most of the letter that I started then. I was explaining the pictures and the greeting cards that we made and sent to you for Christmas. You do not say when you received the Christmas greetings, but I'm sure that you do not get them before the 25th of December. We mail them out early Tuesday morning before the 25th, and ordinarily you would have received them the next day, but the mails were so overloaded that of course you did not get them. We will have to make preparations a few days earlier next time. The reason I did not use the pictures of both children was because the one that we took of both of them was not good enough to use. I thought that the picture of little Chris was as good or better anyway, so you did not lose anything by the choice we made. I used the Christmas greeting instead of the holiday greeting because the former was the only vertical panel that I could find among the masks, and I thought that you could use the cards even if they were a little late in getting to you. We put in some long hours making them. We used up all of the package of 28 sheets of large-sized paper and used quite a quantity of hours, and we're lucky that we had the materials and time to get them out. It was a pity that M.A. couldn't behave so as to pose better, but we thought that the large one we were successful in getting of her was especially good. Most of them were good. We thought that little Chris registered very well, and we have not grown tired of looking at his pictures. I think I will experiment with this picture, and you need not be surprised if I work it up as a single portrait of him and much enlarged. I will send you the others also. I don't know just when we will make them, but I'm sure that we will have to wait until it is a little warmer before we make them, as the water is too riled up during this cold spell.
So he's making Christmas cards here.
Yeah.
Chester's a bit of an artist. He's certainly a photographer.
Yes.
He's very precise about what he wants the photos to look like.
And he's taking pictures. These are Lizzie's, this is Margaret Elizabeth's children.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, the kids, Chris and Emma.
Yeah.
I love the detail here. We used up all of the package of 28 sheets of large size paper. There's a quantity of hours. I usually don't say it that way. Chester has this really particular phrasing where he puts words in slightly different order than the way it might be presented today. We have a quantity of hours that it took to do things. He didn't say it took a long time.
Yes.
He could have, but he's going into, this was a quantity, and here's the particular cards, and I had to use this panel, and then, this one was not so good, but this is why I provided this one instead, because this other one was taken, and it's a lot
he seems very intentional, like the way that he definitely feels like he has to explain himself, and but I do really like the way that I really like his matter-of-fact way of talking.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. I do like that. So he's sending pictures through the mail. He's sending them as greeting cards, but he's like, I'm going to be sending you more pictures, which is so lovely, because I'm sure that this was not something that most people did at this time. Probably. And he's able to do this for his daughter.
Mm-hmm. You'd have to go to a portrait studio, I think, right? You need access back then. Today, we can go online, we can take pictures, and we can make, the family Christmas cards. I love those services, but they couldn't just do it back then like that. So he's taking the time. He has his dark room. He's assembling everything in his quantity of hours. Yeah.
With his multitude of sheets.
His multitude of sheets.
And I think he's like, I'm going to experiment. So this is obviously his hobby, and this is something that he enjoys doing. Yeah. But it's such a great thing for us too, because then we get to see these pictures.
Oh yeah.
Like things that other people, especially in where they were living, like in a rural part, that other people just didn't have access to.
Right. Yeah, it's a highly unusual thing for I think where he is at the time and the time that it is as well, to be able to do this. And I love that he's very particular with the children's photos. This one wasn't quite good enough. This one maybe they're not staying still, but what can you do? But we're gonna make it work. Even with like the posing and making sure everything's perfect. He's very intent with it.
And what is the water was too riled up?
You know, that phrase has been a mystery for myself and for others when we were looking at this. The water is too riled up during the cold spell. I would think it's sort of like the water is boiling because it's riled up. But then it's
Maybe
during a
perhaps
cold spell.
yeah, like I wonder where he was going with that, but yeah, so in yeah, that's another this is something he's doing that he probably wasn't able to do because of the temperatures.
Yeah.
Because he runs his shop, he runs this from his practice,
Yeah.
correct? He has a dark
From his
room.
office. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We have been more or less busy since the first of the year. I have made several calls in the country and have had a couple of OB cases and one case of appendicitis. We made a trip to Des Moines for the operation. The roads are pretty good considering the cold and depth of the snow. I'm still looking for that Model A Ford. A fellow was here this afternoon with a four-door Model A that undoubtedly he'd extracted from the junkyard and given a coat of paint and touched up here and there, and thought that I would be a big enough fool to bid on. I did not take very long to say goodbye to both of them. I think the general practice is too hard on the Chevy and will more than pay to get a Model A to take the brunt of the driving. I have a case of pneumonia, and there are a couple of steep hills, and it is a hard pull on my car to subject to such treatment. Some people call me out on roads they know I'll not be able to get over, but I make them pull them out just as cheerfully as they get into it. It happens almost every day.
Yeah. I have this vision. So he has to make all these calls. He has to go out to people that need help.
Mm-hmm.
He's concerned the car is not going to get up the hill. The residents know the car is not going to get up the hill. So they're like, okay, we got to call the doctor, but then we're going to have to rescue the doctor on the road. And we're going to get stuck trying to get him out of probably the ditch or whatever it is that's going on. But then we're all going to get to the house and then he can treat the patient. So there's this whole just sort of comedic scene that he's talking about. And I love how he says, some of the people call me out on the roads that they know I'll not be able to get over, but I make them pull me out just as cheerfully as they get me into it. Like, well, you knew this was going to happen when you called me up to drive up this hill that my car cannot make it up. So,
And he's looking for a Model A.
he's looking for a Model A Ford. Yeah. So,
I like that. Aw. I hope he finds one.
Yeah, me too. Well, the one that he was offered, you're not going to get anything past this guy. So,
Not past doctor, no. Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
The poor fellow who has pneumonia is 42 years old and has a family of 4, the oldest of which is about 5 years old. He is pretty sick and has had a temperature up from 101 to 105. I'm using sulfapradine on him.
Yeah, and I'm going to pause here because this is the first time in the letters that we're going to hear the term sulfa somewhere. And for the audience's sake, because it may be, sort of seen as like, why are we pausing on just one word? Sulfa is going to reappear time and time and time again in these letters because it's really one of the first miracle drugs that's going to really come out of the late 30s and into the 40s. It still exists today. It's something that I've been researching more of in depth. There's information online about it, but it was really being used to treat pneumonia at the time. So just thinking about hearing that term, just for something for our audience to listen to. Anytime sulfa is mentioned, there's going to be a lot of sulfa doses in this letter and then future letters.
He should better by the time you receive this. He is very anxious about his condition and told me this morning that he never was so glad to see a doctor as he was this morning. He had a doctor from Melkor taking care of him until Thursday and did not have any Medicare until today, Sunday. I gave him his medicine and hope that he will be able to take it until he gets a good start with it. I will not feel so bad if Bill does not take his recent offer of a civil service job unless he got a position near home. I will try to write Uncle Cyril this week and see if I will be able to get some money for the enterprise of buying a farm with it. I think we will do it if I am able to raise the money, as we hope and expect to be able to do so. I don't think that you folks have as much snow as we have here, but I don't doubt you have as much cold as we have been having.
I think it's good to stop here as well. Chester's planning on buying a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a very, as we said, just intent and particular person.
Mm-hmm.
So no really more update in this letter about buying a farm. He moves on from the subject.
Yeah.
But that's going to be very interesting if Chester decides to also become a farmer.
Oh goodness, I don't know where he's gonna find the time between photography and
Right?
driving the hills. But also, I do like too where he's like where he talks about as much snow and stuff.
Mhm.
And like my mother actually always she keeps track of the weather wherever we are.
Yeah.
So it's just a cute thing to see. Him doing the same kind of thing as, oh, I bet, you guys are as cold as we are. And of course, she has an app on her phone where she's able to be like, you're here and you're here and you're here. And I know what the weather is. And I always have to stop and think about how like they don't have that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. And it makes me think of like my grandmother on my mother's side, that the weather seems to be much more noticeably communicated, not just for small talk, but really for what's going on. So my mother's side, her family is from near Harrisburg. So for people outside Pennsylvania, that's in the center of the state, a few hours away. But it was a more mountainous area, part of the Appalachian Trail. It's the where she was basically on a portion of the trail, and the weather varies. So whenever we would go to visit with her, it would always be, there could be some snow on the mountaintop. There could be some ice on the roads. It's a different thing. And she was always concerned, like, are we going to get ahead of a storm or behind a storm? Now, in Iowa, my father was explaining to me, it's a lot colder in the winter out there in Iowa than it is in Pennsylvania. And somehow that hadn't really occurred to me. I was like, it's wintertime. It must be cold. Apparently, it's a lot colder in Iowa than in Pennsylvania during the winter. So,
I mean, makes sense. It's a prairie, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have the benefit. I think it was something to do, I want to say, with the Gulf Stream. I'm not by any kind of meteorologist, but there's something about the way the air goes and the weather patterns across the country that the Midwest gets significantly colder.
Well, and like, so did they have any kind of weather? Were they able to predict the weather, and was that something that was communicated like in newspapers and such? Or
I assume it was, yeah, at this point, because I feel like that would be around for a long time, but I wonder just how much they were going to predict. Here's the degree to which how cold something's going to get. I would think the Farmer's Almanac, which has gone on for so long, probably was where they were looking to a lot of that information, at least in print. How updated it was, what was coming. I don't know how much it could be told out in a place like Iowa, but out there in the rural areas of Iowa, from what my father told me, is it's a lot colder during the winter time, unbelievably so.
We have been wondering about Jeff being warm enough, but I think that you have been as good or better than we would have been to him. We hope that your hymen and the other oofa-oofas don't get any more of your biddies. I would say right off that they're not getting enough nitrogenous food. You will have to feed them some oofina, or should I have said tufina. Now, Bill, don't take this too seriously and go to town and get Midnight something he doesn't deserve.
Now, I was a little confused about this.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, is he talking about chickens?
He is talking about some sort of animals.
Okay, you don't know either. Good.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I've done some research on this, trying to figure out Ufina and all these other names. And what we came to the conclusion about was that these are the animals on the farm. And
it's obviously something. And biddies is typically chickens.
Okay. So, that was more than I knew. So that fills in a lot. We hope that you're.
And Midnight, I could see like, your hymen, I'm actually going to look at this
Mm-hmm.
now because when I saw that, I was like, Allison will know.
Yeah.
I don't know what any of this is, but
Mhm.
this might be like breeds of chickens.
Yeah, it really might be. We only know so much about Bill Bolton. There's something about that offer of the civil service job. Maybe, yeah, the farm's not going so well. And we'd heard, I think, in a previous letter, they're finding out, Margaret and Bill, just how difficult a farmer's life can be. And now they're talking about the food for the animals. So they're still going with the farm, but yeah, maybe, yeah, Biddy's. I guess that maybe would be the chickens. So, well, I guess it remains to be seen how the farm's going to go.
Yeah, we'll
But
find out.
Chester's got some sort of, I almost feel like there's an inside joke. We just can't exactly tell what he's referring to in some of these phrases, but it has to do with the animals at least.
Last week, I had a death from angina pectoris, coronary occlusion in a man of 63 years. I was able to diagnose the case almost from the first day he came into my office. I think it is possible that I have another one in the case of a man who is somewhat older. Last week, I had a death from angina pectoris, pain in the chest, coronary occlusion in a man of 63 years. I was able to diagnose the case almost from the first day he came into my office. The disease is a sudden heart failure. I think it is probable I have another in a man who is about 74 years old. But he is so afflicted from senile amnesia that I am unable to get a clear history from him relative to the true nature of the one attack he claimed to have had during the past week. I have written this paragraph over owing to the fact that the thin sheets that I am preparing for some of the rest of the family were not long enough and did not receive all the impression of my typing. I'm so Scotch that I want to utilize all of my space.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it's really just coming down to the letter writing itself. He wanted to make sure nobody missed a phrase, so he writes two things twice. Yeah.
Frank, I fear that you will not be able to receive your commission as you have expected to do. I think that you should have required them to have examined you at Omaha, as the colonel at Des Moines requested you to do for you. I think that smoking would have made some difference even if you did have a cold. Perhaps you will be able to tell us something about what happened since your last letter. I hope you liked the pictures that we sent you. I liked yours fairly well. I wish that I had the opportunity to make more before you go away. We are enclosing a clipping in regard to one of your EE classmates being killed in the Philippines. Perhaps you knew him well. Sweetie, we are sending you a clipping which mentions the word quisling. I don't think the term is used as clearly as I tried to explain it to you when you were here, but you can see that I was not making it up when I instructed you about the matter. I think there are certainly some dumb college students at Parsons who have not heard the term quisling. Also, I think you should do as the Bible says and judge yourself by yourself, instead of making the usual and common mistake of judging yourself by comparison with someone else. Even if there are many other unimaginative students that want to quit a literary course and take up a business course.
Yeah, we have to stop here.
Yeah.
Quisling, I don't think I'm dumb, but I've never heard this term before. I don't think it's in the common parlance.
No, it's not.
But quisling, so let's get the definition here for all of our listeners. A quisling is a traitor who collaborates with an enemy force that is occupying their country. So that's, the meaning of the term. So this is in reference probably to some articles about World War II. The only country I can think of, really, basically, I mean, I know there were others, but I guess the most obvious country occupied by German forces at this point in time is going to be France. So it could be that they were reading an article in relation to an individual in France acting as a traitor because it's occupied forces and all of that. But yeah, never heard that term before this letter.
But I do like how he's like, see, I told you.
Yeah.
I even have proof. He backs it up.
Yep.
There we go. Yeah, I like how he's like, yep, I told you it's a thing. Here's some proof, which is funny. It's the modern day equivalent of being like, oh yeah, click, 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 see. That's what our phones are for, right? To call people and win arguments. So I do like that. It's really kind of funny. And also like how he is taking a very like stern lecturing kind of tone with Sweetie, because she needs a little bit of she needs a little bit of a dose of reality here. But he also gives, speaking as a parent, he gives really good advice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I like that.
Yeah, the last time we heard from him, he was telling Jean, try to do what's right. Here we get the one that says, don't try to judge yourself against other people. Just be yourself. So it's nice for him to just sneak, while he's saying this other thing about acquitting, he just sneaks in this nice little common sense advice. You take care of yourself. Don't worry about what other people are doing.
And compare yourself only to yourself.
Right.
You shouldn't compare yourself to others. You should only compare yourself to the person you were yesterday. This is solid advice.
Yeah.
And also, I think he is definitely giving her his opinion on people who quit certain courses to take up different courses. We know that she has been exploring other options, and Chester does not approve.
No, he doesn't seem to be a fan of the decision she's making.
No.
I'm glad that the Republican Hinkhouse has got all worked up about the war situation, but I do not yet quite think things look as bleak as he had pictured them to you. However, I think undoubtedly I would have been interested in listening to that lecture that he gave to your class. I feel that he is a brave and wise man. He has been a Presbyterian too long not to be wise.
Once again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got the Presbyterians right at the top. Yeah.
Yes, he thinks very highly, but I like that he's I think he's like Republican. Maybe he's a Republican.
Yeah.
But a
Republican, but I guess I approve of this guy. Chester's a Democrat. He very much is a Democrat. And so he's like, well, I can get over the fact he's a Presbyterian, so he's got that going for him.
Well, church denomination trumps political affiliation, I guess. I guess so. But I think I would agree with him that probably was one of the most interesting lectures that she ever had, the honor of attending.
And then, I decided I should look up Professor Hinkhouse, because it's one thing if Sweetie's talking about a professor, and then the professor's also being regarded as wise from Chester. Or maybe it's just myself saying, we should just listen to the doctor, that the doctor knows what's right. So I did look up Hinkhouse, and there is some information about it. His name was Fred, I think it's Junkin, because it's Junkin, Hinkhouse. And he was born in 1895. And he actually was born, and his father, his senior Hinkhouse, was a Presbyterian minister. So I thought that was really funny too. So the professor himself is coming from a family of Presbyterians because his father was Presbyterian.
And he said he's been a Presbyterian too long, so he was a Presbyterian apparently from birth. If his father was,
he's got good Presbyterian credentials, and he was educated at Parsons. So Hinkhouse went to Parsons, and then he got his PhD at the University of Chicago. Now, the information I'm looking at, which is from, let's shout out this, it's the Columbia University Irving Medical Center. They have one of his diaries there, and they're indicating that his dissertation was called The Preliminaries of the American Revolution as Seen in the English Press, 1763 to 1775. So this is a history professor. Apparently he was also the dean at Parsons. So it's mentioned he was really well liked, I think, in Sweetie's letter. So it makes sense. This is a very popular professor on the campus. But the other interesting thing is, we talked about in the previous letter that he had been in World War I. This source is indicating that he had served as an orderly at the U.S. Army-based hospital in Étretat, France. So, and that hospital was a Presbyterian hospital unit, and he left his diary. So, just for a little information, shout out to Professor Hinkhouse. Well liked, even by a Democrat, but probably because you're Presbyterian. But yeah, I mean, certainly someone who has the background of having gone through medical. And I think probably that's the other reason Chester, as a doctor, he's probably heard more stories from her about Hinkhouse and that this individual was served with the medical teams, the groups in World War One. Chester would be very interested in that to hear. So, but yeah.
Jean, we will watch for some articles in the paper pertaining to psychiatry. Surely you will not have 50 hours of the subject. Perhaps you mean 67 hours of lecture. Or if you do have 50 hours, maybe you mean that you will have about that much time nursing among the mental cases. If you do have to complete your course at the end of the school year, you could later return to the hospital and complete some of the subjects that you will have alighted in completing the year earlier than you were scheduled. Sweetie, mail us Bob's letter that he last wrote you. We'd like to read it as we have not had any word from him for some time. We have subscribed to Time Magazine for the special offer of 6 months for the special rate of $2.67. I feel that we are entitled to receive that much of a treat for this one time. Perhaps I could mail it out to some of you after we have read it.
Yeah, Time Magazine, in my mind, there's no question as to why Chester's saying, I want to get a subscription to something like Time Magazine because they've entered the war. So they want that coverage, and they're going to be forwarding this information around to everybody else so everybody can get informed more in depth with what's going on during the war.
For the special rate of $2.67.
$2.67. Now, I didn't do the division here, but I guess that's somewhere around, 40 cents or so? Yeah, so, yeah, just over like 40 cents an issue. It's a pretty good deal.
Then it probably was like, 50 cents an issue, most likely?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
I mean,
because
some
it's a
nice
special rate, yeah. So I guess if you were to go and get a Time Magazine at a store in like Des Moines, yeah, probably around 50 cents, 65 cents for an issue of Time. Yeah.
Honestly, I can see the benefit. You're like, I'm going to get 6 months of war coverage, which is basically what it's going to be. It's going to be delivered right to my door.
Right. Yeah.
And it's cheaper. And so he's like, yeah, we're doing this.
Yep.
And I just love having examples of what things cost at that time. $2.67. And everything is, for me, everything is like, that's less than fixing a watch.
Yeah.
But, and it's less than fixing a car. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it's good to have that reference point of what things cost back then. I like how he says, we're entitled to receive this much of a treat. He's really excited to get some in-depth information, but then he's going to treat it just like he treats everything else, intensely so, and with that doctor's level of precision.
Yes.
I can just imagine him reading an article and like getting out a red pen and marking it up and asking questions. Now, I've yet to see one of these issues of Time Magazine, if they still survive, that Chester had, but I would think he's the kind of person that would annotate it and leave notes for like the kids that he's going to send it to. Now look at this phrase here. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. That'll be great.
We would like to hear from Bob about whether he has made it for keeps and if he is going along to finish his course or whether there is still some obstacle in his way that he will have to hurdle before the final goal is reached. We would like to hear from all of you about your pictures and how others thought they were, good or bad. I will have to pay some bills and some more debts before I will have the opportunity to get a good order of 8x10 paper. I received a letter from Wurzel, and he is plugging away at the same old thing of getting out a few finishing jobs to keep the wolf away from the door. This is about all I have to write about at this time. I think I would have been able to have written a better letter the 25th than I am able to do today. I wish that I could go rabbit hunting with Jeff. There are not many rabbits around here to hunt. I must close. Love, Papa.
Dear Jean, sorry about the cold and glad about the tunnel. Let us know you are okay again. I've bruised a knee from a few cellar steps that flew up and hit me. D was thawing some frozen pipes, and I took a chair down for him to stand on and slipped, etc. something. I've torn up 2 of the dresses into rug rags. Love, Mama. Could you send us a picture of Bob in his uniform with Florence?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so there was a little handwritten note from Mama.
Right, scribbled at the end.
I'm assuming she's referring to Dad.
That's what I'm assuming as well. He's downstairs in the basement. He needs a chair to stand on. He's thawing out some pipes. I'm going to take a fall here from doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just seeing and I do like how I really feel like I would like Chester.
Right.
Like when he's like, I must close.
Yep. That's the end of this. Yep. Conclusion.
And what is it? And the moving pen so written has now moves on or something. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm sorry. I'm paraphrasing, but yes, he's just I like how he's just done. This is how I would end letters. Yeah. If I was writing letters.
Now on Mother's Day, Dad and I went down into the basement, and Chester liked to label things that they were his. He has a very unique signature. I'll have to put it on the site of the Chester Demaree doctor signature. Mm-hmm. He would label random things, including just random pieces of wood, random pieces of metal, of which, he was working with his hands. He was fixing things. So he takes me down to the basement on Mother's Day, and he pulls out this little plank of wood for nothing. It wasn't part of a piece of furniture. It wasn't saved from. It was literally just a piece of wood, and they're inscribed in a Chester Demaree. And he carved his name in the same handwriting as the signature into this piece of wood. So it has been passed down. I'm gonna have to borrow that and bring it up on screen so people can see it. It's just literally like this random scrap of wood, and he was I guess he liked it, and he was like, I'm gonna put my name on it, and he did. And he did it with a piece of metal as well. So it's just really funny.
It's funny. It's funny because I always write my name on my leftovers. Mm-hmm. Like when we go to restaurants, I'm always like, mine. So I feel like he was like, this is my piece of wood.
Yep.
You can't come in here and take it for some reason.
Yep. Very intense, very particular. Oh, but I do have a treat for you, Jamie.
Oh, yes.
Because I found this, and a couple times in the letter there, Chester references somebody named Jeff. And I do have a picture of Chester and Jeff. So I'm really delighted to show you this picture. So I'm going to go ahead and share this, right? And this is Chester and Jeff.
It's a dog.
It's a dog. Yeah.
Well, and here's Chester in his lovely jacket. Yep. Yes, hello. And the dog is smiling for the picture.
Yeah. I didn't want to give it away because in the middle of the letter, we had all those unusual names for the animals. And Jeff is a very human name. So it sounds like Jeff is just working at the farm. Maybe and then he's going to go rabbit hunting with Jeff. And so it sounds like, okay, you must have this buddy. Mm-hmm. This is Jeff. So we do get to see Chester and Jeff together.
Well, it's always nice whenever we have a little bit more information and a visual for the people in the letters.
Oh, yeah.
Or animals in this case. I really wish we could see Midnight or the other ones but that's really sweet. And see, this is again another thing where we're able to get this stuff because he might have just set the camera up himself.
Yep.
Out in the field.
Did. Yeah. Or
Jeff understood the assignment.
Yeah. Jeff is smiling. He did not neck beater it like Sweetie did the previous week. That's a good pose for a dog.
It really is.
Job.
That is a
yeah. So
he's a cute little guy. Maybe he's some kind of Jack Russell or something.
Yeah, some sort. Yeah, a smaller dog. By all means. Also, I'll get this up on the website so that people who are listening on Spotify or one of the other channels can definitely see the photo. Yeah, but had to leave that for the surprise at the end. Jeff is his dog.
That was lovely. Jeff the dog. I hope we hear more about Jeff.
All right, so that concludes this episode of the Love Sweetie podcast. For everybody listening, check out the website. I mean, who doesn't want to go to a website and look at a picture of a cute dog? So,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
we're going to make sure that that's on the website, on Chester's section of the website. That's www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. For those listening on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the episode, share it with your friends. We hope that you're enjoying everything so far, and we look forward to seeing you next week for episode 5.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Night. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Love Sweetie podcast. For more information on Sweetie and her life, as well as more information on this podcast, please go to www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. Again, that's www.lovesweetiepodcast.com.